welcome to the Milford Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, February 25th, 2013. The first item that we have is the signing of the warrant.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. We have two meeting minutes. We have the meeting minutes for February 11th, 2013, and February 12th, 2013. Motion made and seconded to approve both. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That too is unanimous.
Yeah, he's right.
Citizen participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board not scheduled? Okay, moving on. We have public hearings, and the first one that we have is with the Insurance Advisory Committee, and this is for a recommendation on the FY14 rate proposal. So come on down. And while you're getting situated, we have correspondence from Barbara Oja, a town treasurer, and also a member of the Insurance Advisory Committee, detailing the quotations that went out and also what was received from Harvard Pilgrim, Delta Dental, and the life insurance. We also have memorandums talking about a flexible spending account, and the administrator, I guess, which would be HR Concepts LLC, and then also a worksheet that shows some examples of healthcare out-of-pocket costs with the Harvard Pilgrim Choice Net. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Barbara.
Okay. So we did go through our typical annual process where we ask the providers to submit quotes for health insurance for next year. They were provided with the plan design of our current plan and asked to provide a quote to that effect. So I should probably introduce everybody before I just start talking, right? Because
Sure.
I was neglecting doing that, so let me just stop for a second. Down at the end here, we have Brian Adams, who's our representative from Harvard Pilgrim, and next to him is Brian Boyle, who's been the long-term consultant for the town of Milford, and immediately to my left is Peter Filosa, the chairman of the IAC. So I'll go back to the presentation now. So as a result of that process, which kicked off in the late fall timeframe, we received bids from Harvard, Tufts, Fallon, and Blue Cross. So at this point, everybody that we asked to submit a quote did. The quote from Harvard Pilgrim was 3.75% increase. Tufts was the next lowest bidder at 5.45% increase. Fallon at 7.72% increase, and Blue Cross at a 15.9% increase. So the committee met twice to go through this and discuss the different rates. There was some conversation that since Tufts and Fallon were so close, only being a couple percentage points off, that maybe there's some advantages to the Tufts that isn't in the Harvard Pilgrim product. So we examined that by comparing the hospital tiering in both, and also the doctors, the highly used doctors by our members, to see where they fell out in the tiering. And we didn't find anything significant that would warrant us to go with the higher price product, so the committee voted to support the Harvard Pilgrim quote at the 3.75% increase. It's also of note that we, during this time frame, also look at Delta Dental and our life insurance, Boston Mutual, and both of those submitted bids with 0 increases. So as the first order of business, we're looking for the committee to vote the adoption of the rates that are detailed in the chart on the bottom of your page. with the 3.75% increase for HMO and PPO and 0 for Delta and the life insurance.
Do you want to do that now, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think we can do that now, and then,
All right, well, let's, yeah. do you-
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve the proposed
As
2013
recommended by the
rates.
Town treasurer, yes.
Is there a second?
Yes, there is.
Second. Any discussion? Dean, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I just think, every year we do it, Robert comes in, Peter, the consultants. It's unfortunate that there has to be a % increase, but I think as we always know, what this group does is a lot better, a lot, cost-effective for the employees, because everybody else is paying probably 7, 8, or 9%, so it is what it is, and unless they do something on a national level, we're gonna continue to see these, even 3.75, it's not a significantly large increase, but still it's something for some people who can't afford it, and these people know best, they've been doing it, and, we appreciate the great work that all of you do in working with the unions, Peter, and all that.
Yeah, Bill?
Yeah, it was some of that discussion I wanted to get into because we've recently changed, right? And
yes.
employees have had the opportunity to settle in, if you will, and gain an understanding through a year's worth of health insurance. And I've heard a few things, and you actually acknowledge that there have been some concerns, especially with some of the deep out-of-pocket expenses. A lot of it, we should acknowledge, right, for the benefit of anybody who doesn't get into this deeply, a lot of those benefits and a lot of those savings were pass-throughs, right? Pass-throughs to the employees and greater out-of-pocket expenses, not unlike what a lot of us in the private sector have seen for a lot of years.
Right.
And I don't know if I want to bog down the vote, Mr. Chairman, or what I want to do is acknowledge some of the things that you've said in your writing here, and talk a little bit about that.
I was going to do that after the vote.
After the vote?
Yeah.
And that's fine. We should get into that because
Yeah.
it's a healthy discussion, and it's an opportunity to see where we go from here. And as we get an opportunity once a year to meet with you, share some of those concerns and talk through some of those.
Right.
But no, no issues with 3.75 or the plan.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Okay.
Barbara?
So during the course of the conversations with the employees, as Selectman Buckley said, there has been a lot of concern over the large amount of out-of-pocket costs. It's a shifting, really, of how the employees are spending the money. And so the 3.75% increase this year, interestingly enough, still doesn't bring us to the rates that we would have gone up to last year if we stayed with the old product.
That's the employees' rates or the town's out-of-pocket,
Both.
town's cost?
Both.
Okay.
Both. So those,
Barbara, just let me stop you. So you're saying it would not have gone to the rate for 2012?
actually 2011, because we went
2011,
down, we
okay,
went
yeah.
down 6.2%.
Okay.
And now we're
Yeah.
up 3.75.
So now
So
in-
we're still below where we were in 2011 for the rates.
Right, so now in 2013, 2 years out, we're still below
Where
what
we
was
were.
2011.
Correct.
Okay,
So that's an important thing to note.
yes.
Yes.
And it is a lot different. It is going to take people some time to get used to. I know even myself, we have had circumstances this year where we're finding that we are getting bills for things that typically in the past would have just been covered by insurance. I did try to put together an example sheet, and I hope you took a few minutes to go through that example sheet. There's going to be winners and losers, but we do have a mitigation process in place where if an employee who has a family plan spends up to $1,500 out of pocket, the town will reimburse him $500, him or her $500. They received $1,226 in relief between the one-time premium savings that we reimburse to each employee and the premium reduction. That totaled for a family $1,226. So that person would have to spend $1,726 before they would incur a loss. Now, certainly, some people are hitting that because some people.
You have a baby, for example.
Oh, yeah, you have any kind of a procedure, and you very easily get up there.
Right, you could be
Yeah.
$4,000 out of pocket.
It,
as an
it,
example.
well, 4,000, the hospitals are tiered, and then the services are tiered. So, yeah, but once you hit a tier 3, 750, for that person, you really shouldn't be incurring anything else other than co-pays and prescription. So it's really difficult for one person to get to 4,000.
Right.
But if you have a family with a couple of 3 instances, and you get to the 750, you could easily, get to the maximum for one person of the 2,000. 4,000 is a family limit, okay? So those are, concerns. I think there's still education and learning going on. We do have a couple of meetings planned in March on the 12th and 13th of March. We're going to have the 12th is going to be here at the town hall. I have to coordinate the actual place and time with Mr. Solazzi, but we're hoping to dedicate an hour and a half where people can come in and ask questions of our rep. We're going to have the dental rep and the life insurance rep here also. And we're looking to see that we could actually have explanations of how to read your explanation of benefit. Harvard Pilgrim sends you a sheet every month, and I think that sheet is confusing. We did tell people what to expect last year and passed out samples, but until you start really getting them, you don't really understand. And I'm pretty good with numbers, and it's taken me a couple of go-arounds to really understand that sheet and that explanation that they give you. So we're going to have those kinds of things for employees to help them. The other one is on the 13th up at the high school teacher resource room, and both of these are afternoon sessions, so it shouldn't interfere with any evening meetings that are occurring. One's a Tuesday and one's a Wednesday afternoon, late afternoon. The other thing is that the employees have brought to, the IC has raised to, and asked me to present to the selectmen, has to do with the flexible spending account. This is something that the teachers' union successfully bargained in their last contract. And the understanding with the teachers' union was that they would pick up the fees, the annual fees associated with this, and assume all risk. Now, risk occurs when you hire somebody, they sign up for the FSA. When you sign up for the healthcare portion of an FSA, say you choose to go in at $1,500. On day one, you get a debit card that has $1,500 on. So if, say you have a procedure and you spend your whole $1,500, and then you leave after 3 months, you leave, you don't come back. Well, you haven't paid your whole $1,500 into the town. So that risk is being absorbed by the teachers. And that would be offset by the flip side, employees that sign up for $1,500 and, only use $1,200. And so it becomes a net risk. So I did have a conversation with Town Council Moody about the possibility of doing this, and we do have a lot of turnover in certain positions, but not in our full-time positions, people who work 35 or more hours. Those jobs are fairly stable, and those people are fairly stable. So the cost associated with this and the risk associated with this would be limited if we limited the number of people that could participate to just people who are working 35 or more hours. And so if the board thinks that this is something that they want either further information on, or they want to consider to open it up to more employees, I welcome, your questions or concerns, and let me know, if you want any further information. It's $450 annually for the renewal. The employees are paying the monthly fee, which this year, I think is $5.95 a month. And then they pay the contribution into the plan. There's two pieces to the plan, a health care and a dependent care.
So that's per employee, the $5 or $6?
Per employee per
a
month.
And that's just a fee that goes to the administrator?
The administrator. It doesn't go to the town, it's a pass-through.
Okay.
We take it from the paycheck and turn it over to the company.
I read through the information that you provided on the flexible spending accounts, and obviously it would be a benefit, I think, to the employees.
Absolutely.
And it's something that personally, I would like to see the town pursue. Towards that end, I would be asking for your committee to advise us as to what the town needs in terms of resources to do that.
Okay.
Is there personnel, is there software? I mean, I don't know what's needed to implement this plan and make it available to employees, but, I'm familiar with these, and it's clearly, I think, a benefit. I think that the challenge is, I guess, for the employee to try to target a number that he or she thinks is gonna be
If you don't
spent,
spend it, you lose it.
spent that year.
Right.
So, and if the number's low, I mean, that number could be spent out.
Right.
And the employee might have more medicals, but at least they've taken full maximum use of the
Right.
FSA. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of benefits to it. So, from my perspective, I'd like to see the town go forward, be able to offer that to the employees. But, having said that, I really kind of need to know what the town needs
Right,
for
in order to do
resources to
that.
do that.
Well, I'm not prepared to answer that question tonight.
Well, no, I'm not
But
looking- no,
certainly,
yeah. Right.
I think that is, something that we need to understand. I agree.
Yeah.
And if the board doesn't mind, I'd like to take some time to look at that and evaluate that.
Yeah, let me turn it over, Dean?
Yeah, no, Mr. Chairman, it definitely would be a big advantage to the employee. In my office, out of 14 people, 8 individuals have it, and they're able to save money every year. They have, some children, sickness and all that, so it works out. So I think, to try to mitigate the cost, I think, as the committee and Barbara have done, anything that we can do to help out the employees save on medical expenses, I think it's incumbent upon us to do that. So hopefully you can bring back some information, and then we can incorporate it later on, approve it.
Yeah, Bill?
The flexible spending accounts have been available for a long time from a private sector standpoint. I've seen them and been part of them, so, yeah, I agree. So anything we can do. Also agree, understanding the soft and hard costs associated with that and what the overhead is important
Yep.
to weigh it.
Is this something that you would think we would be able to implement for this upcoming insurance year? Does this start May 1 or?
May 1 is our renewal, and that is when the teachers are renewing, is May 1.
Okay.
So, it would be nice if we could, but if we don't make the May 1 deadline, we could always do a special open enrollment for the new people coming in.
Okay.
And, I'm sure that we can work with HR Concepts. And it's not unusual, when you get a bunch of new folks coming into something to do a special open enrollment. So I'm sure that they would be happy to see numbers increase, and it would only be advantageous to them, so.
Okay. Well, whenever you can get some information back to us, if it's a funding question, we've got the annual town meeting coming up,
Right.
whatever you think that we need to target. But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Well, Peter, did you want to add
Anything
anything?
else?
No, I think that we used to have flexible spending a long time ago.
Peter and I were the only two
We were
members.
only 2 members. But that's when insurance was different, when you had no out-of-pocket cost.
Yeah.
And out-of-pocket costs are gonna continue. There's not a plan out there, I shouldn't say that. There are plans out there are no out-of-pocket costs, but we can't afford those anymore.
Right.
Nobody can afford them. So, we're gonna be in out-of-pocket costs for a long time to come. And This year is why I think it came up at the meeting, because these people went through their first year of out-of-pocket cost, and now flexible spending seems to be a lot more attractive to them.
And this concept, Peter, is not, solely because of the town of Milford.
Oh, no,
We're
no,
basically
no.
following a trend.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the insurance in the private sector, I think for a long time, has been much less beneficial than the municipal offered.
Oh, definitely,
And I think it's just
definitely.
recently, the municipal insurance is starting to come in line
Yes.
with what's offered in the private sector. And I think that's a shock, to a lot of longtime municipal employees that might not have ever experienced the private sector. But this is the way of the world, like it or
I
not.
mean, if you look at the legislation too going through, they're continually taking a look at it. I mean, there's bills that, Governor Patrick is putting out right now that's gonna change the framework even again, if they get approved by the legislation,
Oh, absolutely.
Dealing with retirees, dealing with health insurance, all aspects of that.
It's
You
a
know?
work in progress. I mean, the whole health insurance thing, that's way beyond us, way beyond our pay grade. But, it is encouraging, as Dean had alluded to, that, at least we're looking at increases that are reasonable, 3%, 4%. I mean, I remember sitting here looking at 12%, 15%, numbers that were just off the charts. To me, totally unjustified, but it was the way the industry is. So, at least slowly, I think, we, not just the town of Milford, but we as a society, I think, are moving in the right direction to try to get, healthcare costs down.
And the other side of this was with the flexible spending too is, we had quite a few people at the table that have young children now in daycare. And that's that's even a bigger, when you look at that, it's really even a bigger plus.
Now, that would be a separate type of account, that DCA?
Yes.
It would be two?
Yes,
Two.
you'd run
You
two
have
of them.
two separate accounts,
But
okay.
the administration of each one is basically the same.
Right,
That's
okay.
again a major,
So-
because
so
you could put up to, was it $5,000 into that account?
And that cost is predictable.
And that's
Right,
predictable.
right.
Because you know what your daycare is gonna charge for the year, so.
So would you be looking to give us a
Both.
proposal?
Both.
Okay,
Right,
to
we
work
have,
both.
we have
Okay,
actually
great.
young teachers, a couple of young teachers that are in both sides right now.
Yeah.
And, they love that dependent care benefit. And, it's a set amount per month that they get from the program to help them offset
And the
their
benefit by
costs.
doing that is, of course, you put the money into that account, and you don't have to pay taxes
No
on it.
tax,
Correct,
no,
correct.
no.
So that's a
No,
significant
and you have to spend the money anyway, so you might as well put it somewhere where you can avoid
Right.
taxes.
It-
Right.
I mean,
And on the health
Right.
side, it might be interesting to note that it's also good for items that aren't covered by the dental or the health, like eyeglasses. Like, I mean, you get, it costs, what, $500-600 for a pair of eyeglasses today? You can put that money into an FSA and you have that available for eyeglasses. A lot of
Oh, that's good. I didn't know
employees
that.
have children that have braces,
braces, all of that, there's,
can pay
So
for
it
the
would cover
braces.
things that aren't necessarily covered by the health insurance?
Correct.
absolutely.
Oh, that's
Correct. Yeah,
interesting.
As long as they
Okay.
fall in that health category.
All right, I didn't
Yep.
realize that.
Yep,
Yeah,
so,
And employees can opt in or out of that.
And they can
Yes.
jump in one year, stay in, whatever they got going on. yeah.
right,
no, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
so.
So whatever you think that we need to do, let's do it.
Guys, you got anything to say, Brian?
Unless you guys have any questions, I mean, I think
I'll
you
say
and
it.
Peter
Yeah,
covered mostly everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay,
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
You
you.
know, as always, very good work by the Insurance Advisory Committee. Barbara, we appreciate the work that you do on this every day to administer it. It's not an easy job, but you do a great job, and thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, nice to see you as always.
Yes, it is.
Okay, the next item that we have is a public hearing on behalf of BioMeasure Incorporated. It's an application to amend Chapter 148 license. And let's see, apparently there's a storage of a number of flammable liquids at BioMeasure Inc., 27 Maple Street in Milford. And the applicant is looking to amend that fuel storage license. And pursuant to MGL Chapter 148, Section 13 and 14 as amended, this is a public hearing. And before me, I believe it's Ross Ignachuk,
Very good. yeah.
okay, from Ipsen, and I'm sorry,
Megan Senor.
and are you from Ipsen also? Okay, and we also have the fire chief here as well. So why don't you tell us what you think we need to know about this?
Well, basically, we have an existing license as it currently stands. The real reason for putting this out was to be able to make it a little more accurate, so when the fire department, God forbid, if they have to come for a fire, they have accurate information for what we have on site. So it's reducing a lot of the numbers, and it's better categorizing what we actually use on a day-to-day basis compared to what was on the license currently, so that's our main reason for it.
Okay, great. And Chief, I take it you've had a chance to review this?
Yes, well, fire department has no issues with this. Lieutenant Mark Nelson, our fire inspector, was out on Friday visiting the site. Everything is in order. We've historically had a very good relationship. They're a very conscientious company and has had an issue.
Okay, great. Let me turn it over to the board. Dean?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Chief, we're actually decreasing the amount of,
It's relatively flat. There's some chemicals that are changing in their quantities. You know, they're taking the propane off there, so there's a 2,000 gallon decrease in the propane allowed on the license. But it's pretty much a neutral combustible liquid and flammable liquid.
Chief, this particular company and other companies, how often are those things checked?
From the fire department
Right.
standpoint, we're probably in there maybe once a year. You know, they're a company that's going through a lot of renovations and upgrades pretty regularly, so we're into their facility maybe a little bit more than we are in some of these other ones. They're in a highly regulated field, so they've got a lot of eyes on them as far as what they do.
Okay. And as far as the training, sir, what type of training do you provide, or what type of training do you institute so that, in case something happens, that you're able to handle it right away?
Well, we have a full emergency response program, emergency action plan, so we have personnel on site that are trained to be able to respond. We have protocols for who gets those phone calls, I'm sorry, who gets the phone calls, from how that gets progressed, obviously our coordination with the fire department to make sure we handle all those things appropriately. We have, everybody on site is trained, as well as certain emergency coordinators within the company.
Okay. And then the chief, you have a list of all those professionals at the companies in case you have to call or something?
Well, we rely on our own staff
Okay.
to deal with incidents that are, you know, chemicals.
Right.
We call in our hazmat team to
Yeah.
deal with that. One of the things to point out on this is, you know, their storage was within flammable storage rooms and flammable storage cabinets, and their quantity size, correct me if I'm wrong, is pretty much the largest vessel is 5 gallons.
Yeah, we have very few 5-gallon containers. Most 99% of it is 1 gallon or less containers.
So we're talking very small individual vessels here, so if there was to be a spill or release, it's gonna be very small in nature.
Okay, thanks, chief, that's
Clean
all.
up with a mop.
Right. Thank you, thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, Chief, you had mentioned some of the different set of eyes. I wanted to go to the applicant and understand. Who are I'm going to assume the regulatory agencies involved in the storage are going to be people like EPA, DEP. Is there anything unique that's to the industry, to your particular?
FDA. So
So-
we're a pharmaceutical in the process we're research and development primarily, but we're in the process of gearing up for commercialization for a pharmaceutical drug.
You're not currently regulated part of the FDA?
We are not currently under their.
Listed.
No, but that's the intention of in the near future, is to get commercialized, which means then they'll be coming on a regular basis, as well as unannounced inspections, so we have to be inspection ready at all times.
Is your company, are you 14,001 certified as well? Okay. Any plans to do that, just out of curiosity?
We'd like to. We're gearing towards that, hopefully. We have.
Are there other facilities within the company structure that are
Yes,
14,001?
so there are other corporate facilities that are in that, and so that's one of our goals moving forward.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This being a public hearing, is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or comments about this matter? Okay, hearing nothing.
Mr. Chairman.
Motion made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Before we vote, just also like to note for the record that we've received information from the various other town departments the building commissioner, town planner, tax collector, the town treasurer, and the police chief, and none of those departments have any issues or concerns. So with that, there's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks,
you.
chief.
Chief, thank you. Reno, time to talk about the trail.
Never ending.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Happy trails.
Actually, I've personally seen you, but I haven't seen you here.
I know, I know.
Reed, the chairman's gonna give you 45 minutes tonight.
Oh, good. I'll make a long story short. But Louis laughing, he knows I get
I think he said 8 minutes.
it.
Now, you have an event scheduled for March 5th
Yes.
also.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you looking to promote that as well here this evening?
Yes, I want to
Okay.
give a plug for that too.
All right, and then we have a proposed correspondence, I believe, to Holliston. I think that's what we have before us tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
The trail right now on the Holliston end stops 430 feet short of the Holliston town line. We have a fairly large turnaround at that point. So people going in that direction until the Holliston Trail is built can turn around and head in the opposite direction. That has a story behind it. We had that turnaround right at the Holliston line. And in the course of negotiating easements with the Zane Ridge developers, he asked us to move that turnaround 430 feet down further. Because he didn't want all that pavement and turnaround behind a couple of condo units. And we accommodated that. And then we just had the 12-foot extension path going from the turnaround 430 feet to the Holliston town line. So we thought we were home free. And then in the final stages of Mass Highway's review of our design, the Federal Highway Administration engineers decided they were gonna review this project. So they said, you can't do that. We had this all approved with Mass Highway. Federal Highway guy says, you can't do that. You can't have that pavement going to the Holliston town line. Take it out or we won't approve the plan. So we're at the 11th hour, we're almost ready to go out to bid. We said, well, that's fine. When Holliston comes along, they'll just connect to Milford and we'll still have a contiguous path. So that's where we were, that's where we ended up. So now Holliston is progressing and they've agreed to do the work in Milford to make that 430-foot connection. But we have to give them permission to work in Milford. And that's what this authorization is all about.
Okay. Any questions?
No,
No.
motion?
Motion
Second.
made, seconded. All in favor? Any opposed?
Reed, that's an all-time
Unanimous?
record.
That was good.
It's good because
And March 5th.
it's good we get the
Is
vote.
that a
'cause
good
Oh,
bright
yeah,
gift?
vote, yeah.
Is that a good bright gift?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, it's good we got the vote because I already signed the letter for
Oh,
you.
good, all right.
Now, do you want to talk about March 5th also,
Yes.
Reen?
The Friends are organizing a Upper Child Symposium at the Milford Senior Center. Meet and greet is about 6:30 and the event starts at about 7 o'clock. And we're gonna have representatives from the other towns that are on the trail loop, Holliston, Sherburne, Ashland, Hopkinton, obviously Milford. And then we have a representative from Metropolitan Area Planning Council who's gonna talk about regional trails, put our trail in context of that. So it should be a good event. We invite the public. The more the merrier. It's an opportunity to people dialogue and, you know, Milford, as you know, we've got a lot of experience and those other towns are in lesser development stages than we are.
I don't think you gave the date, Reno. I just-
March 5th. March 5th, yep. Next
So it's
Tuesday.
nice that we're helping out those other communities, you know?
Yeah, we're at the point now where we have a lot to offer and we can probably help them with some of their difficulties. But it's been a long process and it seems like it's never gonna end.
Well, I mean, yeah, you know, I mean, maybe it shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, there's always evolution and there's improvement and growth and, it's just been a tremendous recreational resource for the town of Milford. No question about it. It's,
I don't think anybody would have envisioned the popularity of it when we started.
oh, I don't know. I think we kind of thought in the back of our minds it'd be pretty popular,
Well,
and it
it
has
turned out
been.
that way, yeah.
Yeah, it has been.
And Holliston has completed all of their property acquisitions now. Now they have property rights for the trail right through Holliston.
Good.
And, but they hadn't got into the funding track that we did with federal highway transportation funds. So they're doing most of their trail with volunteers, pro bono, and some smaller grants. so their progress is gonna be slower over town, and the other towns are in lesser stages than Holliston.
I remember they had gotten funding very, very early in the process
They did.
through Barbara Gardner.
Right.
And there was a sizable appropriation from the state, and then nothing ever seemed to happen. And Milford, I think, just kind of zoomed right by it and
Well,
went
they
through the
had
TIP
trouble
program.
with CSX getting property rights.
Yeah.
CSX, 5 years it took them to finally get property rights
Yeah.
out of CSX. I mean, we were very fortunate. I mean, we had very, very good cooperation by landowners in Milford, those who had properties that we wanted either to acquire rights outright or easements. And we've been, I think the stars lined up in Milford. The whole community was very well behind it, from property owners to the town as a whole. Town meeting been very supportive. It takes all of that to get this project going and keep it moving.
Even National Grid, eventually.
Eventually, yes. Yeah, that was the
Eventually.
That was a long pole in the tent.
Oh.
Well, anyway, thank you for your time.
Anything else for Reno while we have him here?
Mr. Chairman, as you said, about the process and all that, I mean, you were the genesis, you were the driver, and if it were not for you, Reno, we wouldn't have this beautiful gem in the town of Milford. I mean, we have a committee, we have a lot of people involved, but everything begins from someone, and you were that individual.
Well, it's good to have the ship under you too when you're doing this. If you don't have the ship under you, can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And we did.
Good, so we'll send this letter out
Yep.
and look forward to the March 5th event. I'll be there. And, whatever you need, just let me know.
Good, okay, thank you very much.
You want to talk a little bit more about
No,
other
no, I'm
topics?
done.
I think the town administrator had a question for you, no?
Thank you.
Thanks, Reno.
Reno, thank you. Before we move on, let me go to proposal F4 under new business, because I see a town clerk here. Amy, do you want to come down and talk about this? I assume this is what you're here for.
I'm sure I had any questions.
Okay, so I thought maybe we could do it so you can have an early night home and
That's right.
catch whatever's on TV. But we have a memo from the town clerk, and it talks about basically consolidating the local election, which is scheduled for April 2nd, with the special state primary set for April 30th. And then, Amy, you've laid out some, I guess, pros and cons on it. So why don't you, tell us whatever you think we need to know about it.
Okay, just in case anybody had any extra questions, this would not be able to pass without an approval of the Board of Selectmen, first of all. So I just laid in front of all three of you a few pros and cons that go into the decision that needs to be made. Of course, I'm always in favor of saving the town some money, which there is a cost savings. We would be saving some money in the amount of police detail and custodial setup and breakdown of the elections, and there will be a cost savings in some of the election workers. We would be required, if the elections are combined, to have extra checkers for the check-in and check-out process. We would be conducting the two elections side by side within each precinct. So we would be required to have extra election workers. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, so I want to make sure I have sufficient coverage. So that was definitely a challenge. The other challenge that we would be having separate check-in and check-out books for each election, so that may be a little bit of a challenge, where I had mentioned anyone who has recently moved from Milford would not be able to vote in a town election, but as long as they moved within Massachusetts, they could still vote in the state primary, as long as they moved within Massachusetts. So that may be a little bit of a challenge, but again, the voters would only have to vote once, one time, compared to two elections, they would have to vote twice, so that would be in favor of the voters. And the cost savings, there is a cost savings, so that is also a plus.
Good. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. I think it's a great idea, so let me turn it over to the board. Dean?
Amy, as always, very good job. You're always thinking about the community and the residents. Yeah, I think the idea that we're saving $12,000 is always great, that we can save money, consolidation, and I think that you have been preparing, or will be prepared, as far as like a good education process. If you've come here tonight, hopefully 2 or 3 weeks before the election, maybe go on the radio, with Ed, have something for the newspaper media, even do something as far as on a TV where they can replay it several times. So that way, at least you can educate people, because a lot of times people are busy, they may not catch it the first night. Try to reduce the confusion, the frustration, and I'm sure you've thought about all those things, and I'm sure other communities are doing this also, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah. So I think if we do all those things, it'll be good for the residents, they'll be informed, and their questions will be answered. And it's also good for the community, because we'll be saving $12,000 or more. So I commend you for bringing it forward.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of these challenges are not small. Can we agree to that?
Right.
The $12,000 is significant, I agree. Is it your recommendation? Well, let me ask you, what's your recommendation?
It's always my recommendation to save money for the town. There will be extra legwork, of course, for myself and the election workers and also the Board of Registrars. So that in itself is going to be a challenge for us. We're up for the challenge. We will do whatever needs to be done.
Okay. If you think, I'm gonna go based on your recommendation. You know what those challenges are. When I read separate voting lists at check-in and check-out, I see that as significant. Okay, I'm gonna go based on your recommendation, if nothing else. The $12,000 is certainly appealing, but I just wanna make sure that we can do it in an organized way, and between you and the Board of Registrars, you think you can pull it off, and I've heard you say that, so, then I'm comfortable.
Frank, can I ask another question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Aim, I'm sure you've spoken to some of the other town clerks' ideas, how they're gonna be doing things. I'm sure there'll be more meetings throughout the month of March.
We're going to be having a training with the Board of Registrars and the election workers that are going to be scheduled. So they're aware of any things that may pop up within the day. We always, of course, ask residents if they're unsure of, if they're registered to vote or have had any changes within the last year since the presidential election, to, always get in touch with my office just to double check their status. That's always, it's always, we're always available for that. It will be a challenge that day, definitely, with the two check-in and check-out. There will be confusion, but we're hoping everything.
Yeah, just follow up.
Yep.
Sorry, Dean.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Bill.
Do you have enough workers?
We're still trying to find enough election workers right now.
So now's an opportunity to say that, first of all.
Yes.
And what's that rate of pay for the election workers for that one?
They
day?
would start out as a checker for the check-in, check-out tables. They have a daily stipend. They're not paid by the hour, and it's a little bit over $69
Okay.
for their schedule.
All right, so for folks that would want to work and want to
Yes,
help out.
they just need to
and
be a
have those skills-
registered voter in Massachusetts to
Okay,
help
so
us in
it's
election
a good
worker.
opportunity to say that. You're gonna need more certainly for this, it looks like.
We
right?
will, if the elections are combined, we will definitely need extra.
How is that rate of pay in comparison to other communities?
Other communities, some of them pay them an hourly rate. We have a stipend here in the town of Milford.
But when you net it out, I guess, for the amount of hours somebody might work,
It's fairly low,
we're fairly low.
yes.
And what's the process for reviewing that?
It would go through the personnel board,
Okay. And is there any move or discussion about doing that even?
not currently, but we can talk about that, yes.
All right, because if that's a challenge, what I want to do is make sure that you get the staff you need,
Right.
right? And I know there's a cost to it, but, one of the benchmarks you have is what other communities are doing.
Right.
We talked about that in holding two elections. We might as well talk about some of the other things associated
Going
with
forward,
that
that's
as well.
definitely something we can do.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good opportunity to save the town some money, and also, I think offer greater convenience to the residents. So now, instead of having to go out for two elections, they can do it all in one trip. And I mean, I understand what you're talking about in terms of the separate list, but from a practical matter, you know, it's not a presidential election. It's a
Right.
special primary. So generally, those kinds of elections are very low turnout anyway. So if there ever is a time to consolidate elections, this would be the time to do it. So I'm completely in support of it, and you need a motion from us, correct?
Motion?
Motion made, seconded. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay, Amy, thank you. That concludes our public hearings, and let's turn it over to the town administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have 3 items this evening. First of all, the FY14 budget. As you certainly know, the Finance Committee is recommending budget increases for FY14 not to exceed 2%, and they're requesting that they be submitted by March 11th. I will complete and submit the FY14 budget, but rest assured that you and the incoming town administrator will have an opportunity to revise it as you see fit, as they will begin reviewing the budgets in April. So there'll be plenty of time for any changes that the town administrator, Board of Selectmen decide on, but I'll have it completed by the 11th. Secondly, as it relates to the town engineer's position, the deadline for resumes was this past Friday, February 22nd, and we received 24 applications. At this time, I'm looking for some direction for the process the board wishes to follow. Do you want to follow the outline as indicated in my memo of January 11th? Want to take another direction? Obviously, it's entirely up to you, and I'll adjust as you wish. And finally, the board's been discussing remote participation with the presentation by town council some weeks ago. Actually, I'd sent out a memo on January 8th to the Milford School Committee, the Finance Committee, the ZBA, the Concom, and the Planning Board for input as you requested. As of today, the School Committee, the Planning Board, and the Concom had responded, and at the last minute, the ZBA came in today, so I'm waiting for the Finance Committee, and I made a telephone call, and I'll have that completed for the next meeting. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Dean?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Louis, on the as far as the caliber of the candidates for the town engineer, were you able to look at, do we have some good people?
Yes, some outstanding people.
Any local candidates, Louis?
I believe there may be 3.
Okay.
3 or 4.
It's good to see both of them in the mix, yeah. Okay. And, okay.
So the question at this point on that particular item is how we would like to have Louis proceed. Would we want to have him and the town engineer, and I don't know if you have anybody else, do a preliminary screening and/or interview process? Do we want to deal with all 24? Do we want to be provided a number of 3 or 5 or 2 or even 1? That's the question at this point. Who did you do the review with, Mike? Is it just Mike Santora and yourself?
Mike and I will be doing, yeah.
Okay, all right. If you were to do interviews, would you have anyone else besides you and Mike? Is it something that Larry would be involved in, or?
Highway?
No, I would invite the new town administrator to sit in.
Oh, okay.
As a courtesy.
All right, yeah, okay. I hadn't thought of that, but, all right.
He or she can't say anything, but they can sit in.
Yeah.
Joking.
I don't know what
No,
that kind
certainly-
of process
I'd
you're
certainly-
setting up, yeah.
I'd certainly invite the new
Okay, I just didn't know.
individual into.
I didn't know if Larry wanted to be a part of that, or.
I don't think so, but
Okay. So, I don't know, the pleasure of the board. I mean, I would feel comfortable with having Lou and Mike go forward and screening it out. And then maybe coming back to us after you do that process and tell us what you think. You
Yeah.
might say, you know, we've gone through all of these 24, we've interviewed 5. This person here is really, you know, top-notch. Or you might go through it and you say, geez, we really can't decide. There's 3 people here and would like to have you decide. So I you know, I don't know.
Or maybe you just didn't find somebody within that applicant pool. It sounds unlikely based on your preliminary assessment, but,
Hey, Bill, Brian, don't forget, when Mike was hired, we had 3 rounds of interviews.
yeah, no, it's an important
Hopefully it
position.
won't
And,
be the case this time.
With the decision resting with the board, you know, if you need a hard number and a hard decision, we can do that, or if you wanna go by way of Brian's recommendation, we can certainly do that.
I'll take the chairman's recommendation.
Okay.
Why don't you do that and go through the process as you would, you know, willowing it out and then selecting
Come back
whoever
to
you
us.
think ought to be interviewed. And then when the dust settles, you know, let us know. You'd say, hey, you know, this one person is really, you know, top-notch, or you could say, geez, you know, there's 2 or 3 here, I think the board ought to decide. And then we'll see where we're at.
Do that.
That sound okay? Okay. Anything else with the town administrator and his report?
No, Mr. Chairman, no.
No.
All set? Okay. Moving on, under old business, the chief has given us a memo about the sex offender restriction bylaw proposal. And if you recall, when he was last here, I think each of us had some question or comments. He's incorporated some of the changes that I think that we've talked about, and also provided us some additional information in terms of how many sex offenders have newly registered in the town going back to '09. And I talked to the chief today about this. I didn't know whether or not these individuals were Milford residents who had that offense, or residents from other communities who moved into Milford. And he indicated to me that, to the best of his knowledge, all of these people were new people. So, you know, if you're looking 3 per year in 9, 10, 11, and then 4 in 12, I think that does support the discussion that he was putting forth last time. And he also expanded his search to other to additional cities and towns in Massachusetts. 71 responded to his inquiry. Of that, 29 cities and towns have a restriction bylaw, 2 are proposing one, and 40 do not. And then he also highlighted the 8 changes that he made to the bylaw, and then provided us additional, I guess, information from the media in terms of these kinds of events. So with that, let me turn it over to the board for discussion. Dean?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as you've outlined, I was very happy with the chief's incorporation of the ideas that we had suggested, especially with the first one, physical disabilities, as well as other disabilities. And on number 6, I think the onus is now on the sex offender to let the landlord know. Whereas I think before, I don't think the landlord would have known in many cases. And I just think, hey, as we read the papers every day, I just think we have to do everything we can to protect the children. And I commend the chief for, bringing this to us for adoption. And I'm sure, like everything else, I mean, Milford has always done things, and then other towns in the area piggyback and follow suit. So, hopefully we can adopt this tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bill?
Yeah, he addressed the concerns very directly, so I don't have any further concerns. And by the way, the data that he provided from the other communities was enormously helpful for me, to let me know that 29 communities thus far have adopted similar bylaws restricting those with sexual offenses.
So this would be a town meeting article. I would take it that I would look for a motion in favor. And
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
motion in favor, and also to put it forth on the upcoming annual town meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion supporting this I'll second that.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Then, did you want a separate motion?
Well,
I move it, or it did? Okay.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the procedure.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so it'll have to go to town meeting, but I think as it goes to town meeting, it'll have our vote of support.
Yes.
Okay, the next item that we have is the town administrator's position. We went through a number of interviews on, I think, some very good candidates. It was interesting to me, the different personalities and qualifications. As I went through the process and looked over my notes for tonight's meeting, to me, I think that, one candidate would be excellent in that position, and that is our town treasurer, Barbara Oja. She's been a great employee, very dedicated, knows the budget process very well. Probably, there's not a capital project that has gone by in the last 16 years where she has not had a major force in the success of that project. And I think that she would be very able to handle that position. But with that, let me
Mr.
open
Chairman?
it to the meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Bill, I was really impressed with the caliber and the character of the 5 finalists that we were able to interview. I think all 5 individuals brought differing qualities and strengths to the position, and they also come from outstanding families. Certainly want to thank them for their interest and participation. I wish we had 5 jobs. However, we have to make a decision and a determination, and at this time, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to appoint Attorney Richard Villani to the position of Town Administrator. Attorney Villani has a necessary educational background, a law degree, the analytical skills, and the ability to research and provide solutions. I was very impressed with his interview, as he exhibited a calm and reflective demeanor, as well as a thorough knowledge of the issues facing our community. For these reasons, I support his appointment as our next town administrator.
Is there a second for the motion? I will second the motion. As I consider this process, and I do believe that, Barbara Oja would be an excellent town administrator. I also feel comfortable with the work that Mr. Villani could do in that position. So with that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
None opposed.
Are you opposed?
No, not opposed.
Okay, it's unanimous vote for Richard Villani. So I think the next step is to have town council commence contract negotiations with Mr. Villani in accordance with the framework that we've set out.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order along with your point. Is that appointment subject to contract negotiations?
Absolutely,
Successful contract?
absolutely.
Absolutely, bro. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
the intent of the vote and the motion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's got to be a successful contract agreement, so we'll notify Jerry to start that process, and hopefully we can come to agreement on that. Thank you very much, good work. Old business, Dean, do you have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Bill?
No old business, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have our annual July 4th firework recommendation.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and seconded to approve the bid of...
15,000.
15,000, Atlas Pyro Vision Productions, Inc. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. We have a request from the Commission on Disability, from Mike Nicholson. Mike, as always, makes a very compelling case for the return of a handicap parking space near the post office. I'd like to indulge the board and ask that we send this on to the town engineer and the police chief for their recommendation.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, any opposed? That's unanimous. We received a request from Attorney Bertnazzi on behalf of JBD Realty LLC for a proposed zoning change, and I would ask that we submit that to the planning board for their review.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, any opposed? That too is unanimous. We received an application from Maspinock Rod and Gun Club for a all alcohol license for March 16th between the hours of 3 PM and midnight.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Private party. Motion made, seconded?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. We have an add-on to the list. The memorandum and decision was received from the Worcester Superior Court in the appeal of the Scioli Corporation to the 3-week suspension that was initially decided on by this board and I believe subsequently affirmed by the ABCC. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, the court has rendered a decision, and I would move that we have, begin a 3-week suspension of the liquor license for that establishment beginning Friday, March 1st.
Okay, motion made, is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have the minutes reflect that I recuse myself for this portion of this discussion, just consistent with the hearing and the rest of it.
Okay, I will second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye, Mr. Chairman.
Any opposed? 2 in favor, 1 abstention. Dean, do you have any new business?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Bill?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have this board, or through the town administrator, review the gas rates. With gas rates climbing as much as they have over the recent months, it's been a while since this board looked at the rate of reimbursement that it has for employees. I'd like to look at that, and what I'd like to do is just compare it to the IRS rate. And I know we're significantly less than that, but I just want to understand, is that what the recommendation is going forward with the recent gas increases, or what the town administrator's recommendation is? And I'd like to have it in comparison to the IRS rates, if the board's so inclined.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good
It's
idea.
been a while.
Okay. You got that, Lou?
What do we pay, 40 cents, Lou?
There's 22, I don't know.
35? Wow, that's really low.
I don't know.
I think I said 60.
I don't get any reimbursement, so I don't, I don't know what it is.
Well, unless you're working pro bono, you get it in the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll take a look at it, see what the numbers are, and put the information together, we can take a look at it. We do have correspondence from Larry Duncan, our town planner. Looks as though it's basically informational, that there will be a traffic analysis, I think funded either through the state or the MAPC regarding the Route 140 South Main Street traffic signal to look at the congestion issues that occur at that. So they will be in contact with Larry in the future, and he will keep us apprised.
Mr. Chairman, while
yeah.
you're looking at that, we had talked with the chief before about the beacon on South Main Street, and he was supposed to get back to us. Louis, can we check on that? The beacon, the light, the flashing light on the bottom of South Main Street? And if there were other recommendations that he was going to, I think he did make some recommendations about making that intersection safer. We could just have that, at some point. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Under the informational correspondence, we have an application for appointment to the Milford Youth Commission for a Brenda Wheelock. And I believe we have an opening.
All right.
Are there openings?
Oh, yeah.
There's one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So entertain a motion.
Yeah, is that all right, Bill?
Yes.
Okay, motion?
Motion made, seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. I asked Lou and Jerry to put together some information in terms of the prospective casino, and specifically, I asked Lou to find out from the Gaming Commission when and how the town of Milford can apply for the $50,000 set-aside to be used for analyzing any impacts that the proposal may put forth. And he's provided us the memorandum, which talks about the letter of authorization and then the, either the grant or the reimbursement process going forward. So that's good information for us to have at the proper time, if and when we do receive a proposal from Mr. Nooms. Jerry has also been in contact with a legal firm out of Chicago, Schlefsky and Froelich, and they put together a very impressive package, I thought, in terms of their qualifications to provide legal services to the town of Milford. They do represent Taunton and Springfield, so they have familiarity with the Massachusetts process, as well as gaming experience throughout the country, which I think would be essential. I think the value that a firm like this would provide is that we would be able to contract with them for services, and then, depending upon the kinds of impact studies that we need, whether they be environmental, traffic, general gaming conditions, whatever impact studies I think would be pertinent to a particular proposal to this town of Milford, we can contract through this law office, and we don't have to do separate requests for proposals for independent consultants. We are sitting on $65,000 that was put forth by Mr. Nunes quite some time ago. In addition to the $50,000 that could be accessed from the state, that would give us $115,000, I believe, to work with. And I think any condition of a proposal going forward would be that the applicant would have to fund any expenses beyond that. I also compared it with correspondence that we received from a law office in Boston on January 5th, 2012, and it seems to me that the Chicago law office, I think, is much more versed in this area. So what I would like to propose is that we have a representative from Schlefsky and Froelich in at our next meeting so that we can talk to them as a board, get more information as to what they could perhaps provide, and see if it's a good idea to go forward. So with that, I'll turn it open to comment. Dean?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that's, wise and prudent for us to do at this point, and to get information, and I would be in support of that.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like is that I'd almost like to look at it from a bidding perspective, and not that it needs to, but what I'd like to hear is who the top 3 companies, or at least 2 companies, that we might deal with on this. And I'll tell you why. There's a couple of things. One, primarily, we're talking about an agency or an attorney that also represents a potential casino that would be 33 miles down the road. Arguably, it's
Community.
From this community.
They don't represent the casino, they represent
I'm sorry,
Taunton.
they represent the town of Taunton.
Right.
And what might be a competing entity. What I'd also like to do is get an opportunity to understand what successes they've had. And I say successes in mitigating secondary effects. And I'd like to hear from somebody else. We interview multiple candidates for town administrator. This is something significant. I just want to make sure that we have more than one person to assess, or one law firm to assess when we go out and make that choice and decision. So my sense is that we ought to be choosing from, 2 or 3, not just the first one that pops up.
Well, we have 2. I mean, we received correspondence from what they call Deutsch and Williams, and also this Schlefsky office.
Right,
So
but-
there's 2 right there. I mean,
Deutsch and Williams
yeah.
hasn't been solicited, doesn't, they when they saw it, they threw out a packet. That's great. They threw something at us. But,
Yeah.
what I'd like to do is meet with a couple of firms that see who could best represent the town.
Okay. Well, let's get Schlefsky in anyway, so that'll be the first start of the process.
And-
So if we can schedule them for our next meeting, Lou, and then at that point, we can have some information, and if it's the feeling of the board to
Sure.
do an RFP at that point, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I don't know why we picked the first attorney to come down the pike to represent. They've got some experience, no doubt, but they're also representing a town that's, also has a casino
Yeah,
bid
Mr.
just down
Chairman,
the road.
Louis, as far as, I think Bill's comments have merit. As far as an RFP, how long would it take? What would be the process? We could have that person in on the 4th, but we could
First
also
have-
send something else.
First we write it,
Yeah,
and you're gonna send it, you're gonna put it in the newspaper, you're gonna put it in the Central Register. You're gonna ask them to return it in three or 4 weeks. 3 or 4 weeks to review it, you're probably looking at a couple of months.
okay.
I think we could put a more aggressive schedule to that, don't you think? I mean, that's following the uniform procurement process, but that doesn't mean that we have to follow that to do it, right? This-
You advocating we not follow the legal process?
Well, what's the process? If we select this attorney, this firms.
We can hire a law firm without going out to bid.
Exactly, that's my point. My
Point is-
point is simply.
The other point is there, and again, I'm not disagreeing.
You know
with
what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
We don't
with
have
what
to go
you
out to bid, so.
Suggested. The other problem we have is there aren't that many available.
How many are there?
Again, we got one, the majority of towns in Massachusetts are going to either the Chicago firm or somebody else. We're probably gonna have to go to New York.
No,
There
Chicago,
aren't
New
any
York. yeah.
locally.
Yeah. I'm not,
But again, I'm not,
but I mean, if there are firms in Chicago, there are firms in New York, and there are firms in,
possibly we could do it another way, and maybe Jerry will have some way to reach some law firms that he may be aware of, and we can attract them that way.
yeah, okay.
No, I think that the comments made by the chairman are accurate right on, but I also think that
No, I think
if we,
I think you should bring them in as soon as you can.
right, we can still,
Very,
we can
very
still go on
shortly,
both paths,
This
right?
process will be
Right.
moving rather swiftly, as this board knows.
Yeah, Louis, we can still go on both paths. We could have the,
Exactly.
that firm that the chairman mentioned come in on March 4th.
And personally, I
At the
think
same
we could
time,
put together a
get
schedule that if we needed to, we could choose between three or four firms within a month.
I think you could too.
Because I think the whole basis, Mr. Chairman, as you've said, I think the whole basis is getting information, getting information so that we can become informed, this is a new concept, a new entity, and I think if we, do our jobs correctly, I think we have to pursue it and look at every stone, uncover every stone, and the more information we receive, it'll educate us, and then we'll be able to educate the public down the road. So I think any information we receive, and I think a lot of times by interviewing several companies or candidates, I think we learn in the process as well. So I commend you, Mr. Chairman, for, bringing that forward.
I mean, I want to get our resources in line so that, when and if we do get hit with an application, we're ready to go forward, because if you look at that schedule that the Gaming Commission has put forth, it's gonna be real fast.
Right,
it is.
And there's gonna be a lot of ground to cover, and I don't think that we're gonna have the luxury of being able to do separate RFPs for independent consultants. I think we have to utilize one of these one-stop shopping law firms. Now, I mean, just keep in mind, and Jerry, I thought he was gonna be here, but, I mean, he has done some of the work, so it's not like, this one just,
Yeah, maybe I'm just missing that.
just fell out of the sky. Jerry has done some research, and it's his recommendation that he believes that this office is the preeminent law office to get involved at this point. But, let's take it one step at a time. Let's
Sure.
get these folks in at next meeting. Let's see the information they have, and then if we decide at that point that we want to do an RFP, we can do it. I mean, I think we still have enough time. They're looking at that June timeframe for the applicant to come out of that round one. So, I think if we have somebody on board a month or two before that, we can start at least getting a sense as to the different areas that we might have to analyze.
Or maybe, Mr. Chairman, here's an alternative suggestion, that if Attorney Moody has done that work, that we schedule 2 or 3 firms in at the next meeting and meet with all of them. Include the top 2 or 3, have them pick the
Yeah.
top 2 or 3.
Well, we can talk to Jerry. if-
Sure.
if there
That
are-
way it won't delay the process, and we can move forward.
We can talk to Jerry, you know, and see if that's,
Yeah, sure.
if that's feasible.
In other words, you can
It
work with
might be a
Jerry on
little
that.
difficult because next meeting's, we're going next week, next
Right,
Monday.
it's the 4th, so that's a tight window.
Yeah, that is.
That's a tight window.
I wonder when you bring people in.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Tight
we'll
window.
try.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we'll see what we can do, but let's get these guys, yeah, let's get these folks in anyway and start that process. And also, we have the information in terms of how to access the additional funding.
Yeah.
So at the appropriate time, we should be able to do that. And that's it, that's all I have. Do you have anything?
No exec,
Dean?
right? No exec,
Oh, I thought we did have an executive.
Yeah, we
have a-
do.
oh, Jerry's here, huh?
Yeah, we have an executive for
Fire.
collective bargaining issues with the Fire Association.
Motion,
Do you have
Mr.
any other
Chairman.
items, Bill?
I don't.
Okay.
Okay, motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made
Move to go into second to go into executive
and
session.
seconded to go in executive session. Roll call vote, Dean?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I too vote in the affirmative, and we will not be returning to open session. Thank you and good.